Little Caesars Premium Detroit-style deep dish pizza with more cheese and pepperoni is our most premium pizza experience. And now it's even more premium. Just call 1-855-TALK-DEEP and we'll compliment you while you eat it. This premium treatment isn't just for eccentric billionaires. It's for you, with your shiny hair and very kind eyes. That one's on us. Pick up our premium deep dish pizza for just $8 and call 1-855-TALK-DEEP. Hot and ready 4 to 8, or order anytime, you cool rebel. Only at Little Caesars.
Pizza.
At participating locations plus tax.
Blog Talk Radio.
Days that just go wrong, make you wanna holler and shout and throw your hands up in the air, wondering what it's all about. And you think that things can't get much worse. In a second, oh, everything just goes south. Keep on keeping on. Whatever don't kill you makes you strong. Don't you worry, it won't be long. Darkness comes before the dawn. I'll take it one day at a time. With God's grace, you're gonna be fine. You got what it takes down inside. Road ain't alone. Keep on keeping on. Some people will stand in your way, always saying what you cannot do. Don't stop chasing your dreams. Working hard to make them come true. Oh. And if it ever gets too tough, just remember your faith will always see you through it. Keep on keeping on. Whatever don't kill you makes you strong. Don't you worry, it won't be long. Darkness comes before the dawn. Take it one day at a time. With God's grace, you're gonna be fine. You got what it takes down inside. The road ain't alone. Keep on keeping on. Keeping on, whatever don't kill you makes you strong. Don't you worry, it won't be long. Darkness comes before the dawn. I'll take it one day at a time. With God's grace, you're gonna be fine. You got what it takes down inside. The road ain't long. Keep on. The road ain't
keeping on. This is Contending for Truth Radio, broadcasting live out of Dallas, Texas. We're back on Tuesday nights. I think everything is not so much crazy anymore, folks. Got back from California, had a great time, and I think we're starting to really get back into the roll of things here on Contending for Truth Radio on American Sovereignty Radio, where we talk about all kinds of sovereignty issues. And do we have a lot to talk about tonight? A lot going on right now. Is there? If we, in fact, we might just have to add a third hour to get everything done. Interesting things going on with the 26 polling and that racehorse that we've been watching. Incredible things. Of course, we've got San Bernardino. I want you to note that I got on a plane with a bunch of Texans, and we left Southern California the day before. There was quite a few Texans on my plane as we got on, and they waited until we all got out before they pulled that. I'm just going to I got to throw that out there. But we've got that to talk about tonight. Got all kinds of interesting things. We've got Glenn Atkinson with us this evening, going to jump in with us, Saturday Symposium's co-host. And, of course, Jennifer Montrose is back with us, feeling better than she was. Not all 100%, but we're still praying for her. And Dan Wilson, I think, is the only one that's running around fully wide-eyed and bushy-tailed right now. Dan was poking at me a while ago. Did you get the show set up? Did you get the show? I was sleeping, folks. I was out. Been a long week. Got a lot done, though. But Dan, Jennifer, Glenn, there are just some fascinating things going on right now in the presidential election. And then, of course, we've got how San Bernardino affects a couple of different issues. It affects the election itself, and it affects the gun control story. And it's an interesting one. I want to start out, I'm going to throw this out, and then I'm going to let everybody just go into their introductory remarks. But I watch Real Clear Politics a lot. I'm a firm believer in polling. I also realize and understand that certain times of certain election cycles, polling really doesn't tell us what we think it tells us. But it does tell us something. And I'll give you an example. When at the beginning of an election cycle, back 3 or 4 months ago, even go back to January when Scott Walker was dominating the polls, that didn't tell us anything about how the end of the horse race was going to be. But it did tell us some factors about some of the different candidates and the momentum they've got and what kind of, if they're at a glass ceiling, they don't really have very far to go. If they're an unknown, they've got a long way to go. What's their name recognition? And a lot of these things we can see from early polling that, it doesn't tell us. If Ted Cruz is, in last place and Donald Trump's in first place, that doesn't tell us anything early on in the polls. But they do tell us something. And right now what's going on at Real Clear Politics, which is an average of all the polls, which is what I like to use. One poll can be off. But you start averaging all the polls, you really start seeing some really interesting trends. And Donald Trump jumped out and has been way ahead for a long time and bouncing it around the 30-point mark. Up and down. He's dipped. He dipped once, but he's back up there, and he's really almost at his all-time highs. Although about 3 weeks ago, I called it, and I said here on Contending for Truth Radio, I think Ben Carson's about ready to take his fall, and he has. Ben Carson has been on a downward slide now for a few weeks, and as of today, on that Real Clear Politics, he has dropped from second place into fourth place. He is now below Cruz and Rubio, who have been steadily over that same amount of time been climbing. And we've got Trump in first place and Cruz in second place right now, Rubio in third. And then we've got Jeb Bush, and everybody else is all under 5. Jeb Bush is sitting at like 3.8. Carly Fiorina is sitting under 3. Rand Paul is sitting down at 1. There is a definite, it reminds me of, sediment in water. It settles at different levels. We've got all those other candidates, and they're all sitting at really low numbers. In fact, I think most of them are below 3. And then Lindsey Graham's got 0, and Santorum's got 0. But so we've definitely got 2 sets. We've got a set of non-contenders that are all at the bottom just laying there. And then we've got Rubio, Cruz, Donald Trump, and Ben Carson, with Ben Carson taking a pretty slight nosedive. So I think we're coming into the important part of the primary season, which is when the caucuses start, when New Hampshire, when we've got Iowa coming up, we've got Ohio, different things going on in different places. And we're going to talk about our good friend Ken Brolin and Camp Cruz. Fascinating thing that Ted Cruz is doing. We'll discuss that a little bit too. But we're ending up with these three contenders, and they're all really good contenders. When it all comes down to it, I love Ted Cruz. I've said for a long time I don't want to share Ted Cruz. I would like to keep Ted Cruz right here in Texas, make him governor. Why waste him on the United States? They probably won't listen to him. But Ted Cruz is coming up there very, very strong and has an incredible grassroots organization behind him. Marco Rubio's got some problems running right now. He hasn't all been honest. And I think that's why Ted Cruz has taken above and shot above Rubio at this point. So we'll see. We will see how that horse race goes. And with that, I'm going to pass it around the table. I'll pass it to Dan. Dan, if you'll pass it to Jennifer. Jennifer, pass it to Glenn. Throw out your opening remarks. There's mine, and we will run with it. Dan Wilson down there in Florida in the number 2 state. How's your weather down there, Dan?
Oh, the weather's great, and I beg to differ on number 2. We're number 1. And the weather's been absolutely glorious here, which is really, really nice. It was in the mid-70s today. It was a little bit chilly this overnight, but other than that, typical beautiful Florida winter weather. And as we get into the winter season, and when you're talking about politics, I agree with you 100% that I like Carson, and I see him as being a wonderful Surgeon General, but he is too passive to be a president. And though I like him when he talks, he is, as a doctor, he'd be perfect. But I get nervous when it comes down to POTUS. So that's the only thing I would, I'd love to see him in the cabinet, part of the cabinet. But, matter of fact, I'd like to see quite a few people who are running in the cabinet, including Fiorini and Cruz and Rubio. I think all of them have something to offer. We have, for the first time, I can say without hesitation that we have some wonderful conservatives running for president. And we actually have a choice. I mean, this is the first time in my memory I can say that. Even in, when Reagan first ran, it was Reagan or nobody. And I'm glad Reagan won, and because he turned out to be a great president and probably one of the best in American history. So, everything worked out great. But this time we have several candidates who I actually could live with and be happy with if they won the presidency. I like Cruz a lot. And all this crap that's going against Trump, fact is, if for those who read my article I just posted around 6:30, I explained what he was saying and what he has been saying. Until we can vet those coming from parts of the world where we have active terrorists, until we can vet Muslims coming into our country from those countries that house terrorists, then it is in the best interests of this country, and it is the obligation of our federal government to protect the people. And since the Muslim population, 13%, according to the latest national security polls, 13% of the Syrian refugees are sympathetic to radical Islam. that means out of 10,000, 1,300 are potential terrorists. And we just saw what only 2 terrorists can do. 14 American lives dead. In 2001, we saw what 10 could do. 3,000 lost. And we're now, since 2001 to present, we're approaching the 4,000 mark. Now, how many Americans need to die on our home soil before we're going to admit that we are at war with Islamic terrorists? They have declared war on us. And when are we going to admit it? When are we going to face that? And once you go into a war situation, for instance, it was them who declared war on us. We had since we were attacked, we did have probable cause for a declaration of war, though I'm not sure where it would fall because they are not a sovereign nation. But I do know in World War II, we had no reason to declare war on Germany since we were attacked by Japan. However, Hitler, 3 days after Pearl Harbor, declared war on us. So that's how we got involved in the European theater. But we are at war right now. We have lost 4,000 plus Americans on our home soil, not to mention the number of people who have died over in Iraq, Syria, and Afghanistan. So we have to come to terms with reality, and in doing so, we cannot allow Muslims from these countries to enter our country without a proper vetting. And we can't do that right now. This is something that is beyond our capabilities. We have no way, because of what's going on with the Syrian government right now, we have no way to do background checks on these people. We have basically nothing to go on. So it's a crapshoot. And are we willing to bring in 1,300 people per 10,000 who are potentially out to kill us? I mean, that's as crazy as allowing Germans during World War II to come over to the United States. I mean, we put a declaration and said no German refugees or no Germans at all were allowed to come over to our country. And that is not a violation of the First Amendment. That's a matter of national security and the protection of our citizens. And this is why I said that what Donald Trump said was spot on. Could he have said it in a little more eloquent way? Yes. But the fact is, what he said was right on. We can't afford to take the chance. And with that, I'll pass it over to our long-lost co-host, Jennifer Montrose. Jennifer, how are you feeling over there in Alabama?
Oh, man, it is so good to be back on the show again. I've spent a month sick, not realizing till towards the last week of everything that I had bronchitis in a real severe way. Took a second chest X-ray to figure that out. But I'm glad to be back. But you know, I've been following what's going on, and I'll tell you, gun sales are out the roof. If that's one thing I can say, you know, thanks to the Muslims for and all this jihadist terrorism, is that gun sales for good law-abiding citizens are out the roof. I mean, we had one of our local retail gun stores here in town that was on the news earlier tonight talking about it. That they just opened up, you know, earlier this year, and they have done more sales this month than they've ever done. And I think what's happening is we're seeing more sheriffs across the United States come out and telling their citizens to please, if you are a law-abiding citizen, get trained, get armed, and prepare to protect yourself and your family. And that's what's, you know, we're the first responders. The law-abiding citizens that carry, conceal, or open carry, whichever you prefer, your choice, you know, we're the first responders, because when it takes a matter of seconds, you know, to take out a killer or to take out a criminal that's going to try to harm you, when seconds count, you're the first responder, not the police, not 911, because there's no way they can get to you in a timely manner. I don't want to be, you know, a scared person in a closet, you know, huddled up. And then this latest, they came out with this video where, you know, you're supposed to you know, run and hide kind of thing. I mean, it made me furious to think, you know, that they're training sheep to just be sitting ducks, people that, you know, that are against, you know, carrying weapons. And, you know, I mean, this is just, it's ridiculous. And rifles are rifles. You know, assault is assault. It's a totally different subject. But, you know, I mean, guns don't just jump up and kill people. It takes a person that's pulling the trigger to do that. You know, and if you take guns out of the hands of law-abiding citizens, then the criminals are the only ones that have them, and you see what happened, you know, in Europe. I mean, sitting ducks. They were sitting ducks. If there had been some people that were carrying citizens, especially what happened in San Bernardino, you know, if there had been some people that were allowed to carry, if there had been somebody in that crowd, they could have stopped those two, you know, terrorists. And, you know, and the sad part is we've got our divider-in-chief who won't even come out and call it like it is. You know, he's sympathizing with the Muslims and the jihadists, but I guess that comes with his background, you know, and his family. You know, I mean, but yeah, you know, I think that's what's really got people stirred up with this presidential election is they're looking for someone who is willing to speak their mind. You know, I mean, we got Stacey Dash on Fox News. Scott can probably elaborate on some of this. And the other guy that was on Fox News that called, you know, Obama exactly what he is. And, you know, I'm just really glad to see some people willing to take a stand and call it for what it is, you know. And right now, Trump's the only person I see out there that's willing to not be politically correct. He's calling it a spade like it is, you know. And you've got a lot of people that are really, you know, trying to twist and turn it. The media is trying to twist and turn what's going on with him, but he's just speaking to just a regular old Joe and Mary, you and me, out there on the street, and that's why I believe that he's resonating with people from across the aisles. People all across the United States, you know, are saying it's time. We're tired of somebody just saying they're going to do something and never do anything. And here's the guy who says, I'm going to make it happen. I can afford to make it happen. I've got the experience to make it happen. I've made it happen before, and I'm going to make it happen again. So we need to put a fence up. We need to put a border up. Glenn, how are you?
Well, I'm just doing wonderful. Thank you, Jennifer. Good to see you. You're doing a lot better, and good to have you back with us. I agree with everything you said, Dan said, Scott said, and everything Donald Trump said. You know, it's just Yeah, he does not say it the way a Carson would, or even a Reagan would, or whatever. But you know what? At this point in time, and with what we got going on, we need a Donald Trump to say it the way he's saying it. Because you know what? Cut through the crap and get to the point, and this is what it is. And he's going to come up smelling like roses with this, because he is, like everything. It'll all get to the point where it'll be clarified and understood. And you know what? All of these people, the media out there, the mainstream media, which is pretty much everything now, it's just, I might as well say, it's all getting to the point where it's all the same media anymore. The Democrats, and even most of the GOP are so against him for this last so-called controversy. I don't think it's controversial at all. I think that they're using it as a religious amendment, First Amendment issue, right, or issue, or whatever it is. It's not. It's got nothing to do with that. It's got to do with an immigration terrorist type of situation, and he's just bringing it to the forefront to saying, hey, you know what? Obama doesn't know what he's doing or doesn't care what he's doing, so therefore we got to do something. And in the process of this vetting that's going on, we got to pretty much keep them out until we get them vetted. That's pretty much what he's saying. It's pretty clean to me. There's nothing dirty about it. And he's going to come up smelling like roses. I'm telling you that right now, he will. And it'll only be in the next few days or so where, you know what, his numbers are going to go up even more now. I know that. I have not a doubt in my mind, because people, when they start, I heard was it one of the representatives from Florida, a Christian, basically called for Trump to actually I hear crackling, to actually have basically withdraw from the race. And I'm like, you know what? That just tells me that he's doing the right thing, because, that was coming. I could smell that coming. And I just, I'm surprised it hasn't been, a week or two ago, or even a couple months ago. But, it's come to the point where this needed to be said. And you know what? I think it's great. I don't think it has anything to do with the First Amendment. It's got nothing to do with the religion, because as far as I'm concerned, Muslim is not a religion. It's a cult. And a cult, so therefore the cult is not a religion, and the cult is basically against Americans and the Christians and whatever else. And they've proven it. They just proved it once again last Wednesday. And so therefore drastic times cause for drastic measures, and this is what he's doing. And I have no problem even saying that at all. And I full power to him for that. Glory to God for that. That's what we need to have. So on that note, I will pass this over to, I guess, Scott.
Well, and thank you, Glenn. And you're so right. And here's something I want to point out. And anybody that knows me knows that I don't have a candidate in this race. I have some that I like, some that I don't like, some that I like for different reasons than others. But I'm going to tell you why I very much appreciate Donald Trump in the primary season. And I want you to pull it back. I want you to, any listener that can't stand Trump, I want you to pull away the concept of him actually being president. I want you to look at him as the CEO of the Republican primary season, and he's rocking at that job. And I'm going to give you an illustration, and here is it. I want you to picture a political cartoon. And at the top, you've got Donald Trump, and he slams his fist into the wall of political correctness on Islam and Muslims. He knocks it all the way. He says the one thing that you would tell a candidate not to say if he were running for president. But when he does, he totally knocks down the wall of political correctness. Now, Ted Cruz stands up and says, well, no, I wouldn't go that far. But man's got a point. We've got a problem here, and we need to solve it. Now, Ted Cruz is to the middle, next to Donald Trump. And Ted Cruz has got an opportunity to spread his word, because the news media, that's all they want to talk about is Donald Trump and his comments and everybody else's responses to his comments. Fiorina better be taken up with this. It looks to me like O'Malley caught me. I think O'Malley has been listening to Blog Talk Radio, to Contending for Truth Radio's American Sovereignty Radio Show. I really do believe, because I have been saying for a long time, I've said it a number of times, that Donald Trump threw O'Malley a snowball here a few months ago that would have given him an opportunity to rise himself in his own numbers, and he didn't pick up the snowball. And I thought he was stupid because that's what Donald Trump is doing for these candidates. He's playing the CEO. Now, I've got and have had for a long time really good word that Donald Trump really does not want to win. Donald Trump wants to make sure we get this done right. And how that happens, we'll see how it plays out. But I will tell you this. He has had a lot of meetings with Ted Cruz. And we've got some incredible things going on with Ted Cruz. And I'm going to bring Gary in here in a few minutes from the Dakotas, is with us this evening. We appreciate that. I got to tell you about something that Ted Cruz is doing. Ted Cruz is taking Team Kaine, okay? He's putting it into a college dorm atmosphere, and it's called Camp Cruz. And our own good friend, who has been on this show a number of times over the years, Ken Brolin, is in charge of Camp Cruz in Iowa. And I am so excited. Ken Brolin there, they've rented out a whole set of apartment complexes. And there's like 24 in one unit, and they've got the unit next door that's even bigger that they can use if they need. They're putting a couple of volunteers in each room. Our good friend Ken Brolin, I just got finished talking to him this morning, was sitting in his apartment last night with about 9 different people just that are all involved in what's going on up there, some of which are friends of ours. But Nancy Hayes is going to be going up there. But they were sitting around there, and who walked in the door of Ken Brolin's apartment but Rafael Cruz, Ted Cruz's father, which it's very exciting for that to happen for Ken. Great Texan Rafael Cruz. We love him dearly. But let me tell you, and we've talked a lot about Connie Burton and Matt Krause on this show. Senator Connie Burton, she was grassroots. She really was one of the centerpieces. She was a Ken Brolin or a Scott Osborne or a Nancy Hayes or a Jennifer Montrose in the Kaine camp. They're getting in there, and let me tell you, she won that Senate race because she was grassroots. So she's going to be going up there. Matt Krause, our most conservative, our most wonderful state House member here in Texas, over from the Six Flags over Texas area. Matt Krause is going to be up there. Toby Marie Walker, a good friend and active member of the grassroots, is going up there. And some other people here from Texas, a big old team, is going up there. And I'm going to tell you, it's ideas like this that are going to be what takes and wins elections for us. We know what works. We know how Eric Cantor got defeated by David Brat. David Brat, for 2 years, built a network, a team of grassroots, and they got them organized, and they got them out, and it worked. We saw that work in Team Kaine. We were very, very organized, networked, and unmicromanaged. And we accomplished great things for the Kaine campaign, the grassroots did. Some of that you can also see, of course, in Ron Paul's grassroots that he had at one point. His son has seemed to have dissipated those down to about 2%, which I never thought could happen. But anybody that has been to college knows that the most wonderful part of college is dorm life. You make friends. You're all living together there. You're there together. It's a great atmosphere. And so this brilliant little plan that the Cruz campaign is doing, which sounds a lot like things that we have tried in the past, Jennifer Montrose. And, of course, Nancy Hayes is involved with this. Ken Brolin is involved with this. On a good scale. So it is really neat to finally see Team Kaine and some of the stuff we learned there really being applied on some interesting levels. It's going to be interesting to see. I would be willing to bet, and Jennifer, I think you would agree with me especially, because you and I were up many nights for Herman Cain and saw what they did. I would be willing to bet this is worth enough points that Ted Cruz wins Iowa. They've got enough time. They're planning on having 500 people up there over the next few months. getting out on the ground, going door to door, doing it Texas style up there. And there's a bunch of people from Texas heading up there for Ted Cruz. And so very, very exciting. And so, Gary, I want to pass it to you, my friend, first, and let you make your little entrance, and we'll just throw you into the round table this evening, and then we'll pass it back on around, and let's talk about the campaign a little bit.
Well, hi, everybody. How are you guys doing? Decided to make an introduction here, so... Anyway, yeah, I tell you what, for me with the campaign, I like Donald Trump. Yeah, he tells it like it is, and that's what I like about a leader. He doesn't beat around the bush. You know, there's too many of them that will say one thing, 2 days later they'll sit there and say something completely opposite. Then I lose trust, but he doesn't. So we must, and of course I like Ted Cruz. I mean, I like them all these conservatives. I really like, because they, like I said, they're pro-Constitution. They're pro-America. They're not making deals. They're not making, what can I say? They're not bought off. I don't want somebody that's in there that's going to be bought off for a special interest, and then we end up surrendering some of our liberties and freedoms that way. So, but that's I guess that's my opening statement, and then I'll just pass it to whoever wants to go next on her. So.
Okay, I'll jump in there. Thanks, Gary, and glad to see you over here on a Tuesday night instead of our usual Saturday. And wow, there's so much to agree with. But one comparison I'd like to make with Donald Trump. Back in World War II, we had a person by the name of George S. Patton. Patton was about as politically incorrect as you could get. Patton called it like it was. He spoke with a foul mouth, and a lot of people hated him. But history came out and showed that he was the best general we had in the Army, and both sides. And Germany recognized that early on. Matter of fact, the reason why they were able to pull off the Normandy invasion is they put Patton in charge of the paper army. And Hitler could not believe they would take Patton out of the biggest invasion in the history of mankind. And shortly after the invasion, he was placed in charge of the Third Army, and we know what he did with the Third Army. And he was engaged in a all-out battle, and when he heard that elements of the 101st were surrounded by a panzer division, he disengaged half of his Third Army, moved it 100 miles, and re-engaged in under 24 hours. No general in history has ever managed to move that many soldiers from point A to point B and do it in under 24 hours. And that includes right up to this day. Well, Patton performed miracles in the 40s. And I see Trump having that same capabilities. I don't think he is willing to, I don't think he's going to drop out of this race. I think he's going to stay in right to the end. And if he wins, I believe he has a good chance at pulling off the presidency. Right now, the GOP elite is shaking in their boots. The Democrat elites are shaking in their boots. The socialists are shaking in their boots. A lot of people fear him because he's willing to call it for what it is. And Jennifer also said something I've been pushing for the last since the last terrorist attack, is the only way we're going to stop terrorism today is to get more people to have carry permits and for them to walk around with their weapons, their sidearms, on their person at all times. Whether you're in an open carry or concealed carry state, the only way we're going to stop these terrorists are if we are armed. I mean, take Wednesday, and Wednesday was a very personal and very close hit event for me. A girl I dated for 5 years worked for the Behavioral Medical Center of Loma Linda, which had moved into this new facility where this event, where this act of terrorism took. I didn't know that until I found out she is part of the faculty of Loma Linda University. That I know that she was safe. So a close friend was in the middle of this. She was within 2 miles of where this event took place. So, you know, I have a personal take on this. It hit far too close to home. And had there been 2 or 3 out of the 85 people who were there who had a handgun, we now know that these terrorists did not have body armor. And had there been 2 or 3 people, let's say, like, you know, with 9mm, 45s, or whatever, they could have engaged, because more than likely they'd be spread out throughout the audience. They could have engaged these 2 people, and even if they missed their first shots, they would force them into a defensive posture. At which point, as soon as they aimed one way, others could be opening fire and taking them on that way. And all it takes is a round or 2 hitting the right place, and you're going to disable them. At which point, then people can take action. Everybody can take action. And you can get to them, and then you can disarm them. And it doesn't have to be a kill shot. It just has to be one that will disable. And, you know, if you do that, if you hit in the person with a 9mm or a 45 or a 38, they're going to be pretty much disabled. If you hit them in the arm, hit them in the leg, wherever, you know, do the standard, aim for the mid part of the body, but if you hit them anywhere, you're probably going to disable them. At which point, we could have saved people. How many? Lord only knows. But the fact is, the only way, and as Jennifer said, there are sheriffs starting to open their mouth and say, hey, if you have a carry permit and you're legal, please do so. Because we know right now that the FBI and the local sheriff's departments are just, they're way over, they're stretched way out. And they don't have the ability to do everything that's necessary. And this is where the militias come in. They can turn up, and when they find out that there's a house or area where there's possible terrorist activities taking place, they can start going under surveillance. And especially people who like recon rangers, you know, veterans like recon rangers and SEALs who are trained in this, they can help train the local militias in surveillance techniques where they are not going to be noticed. And then we can keep an eye on these people, start taking pictures, gather the evidence that is sufficient to hand over to the police or DA for a search warrant, and then we can take it from there, and we can stop these people before they start killing more people. I mean, close to 4,000 Americans have already died. It's time to take action. And, what Trump was saying about not allowing Muslims from terrorist nations coming into our country, well, you know something? Would we have allowed Germans into our country during World War II? We're at war. They have declared war against us. I mean, Osama bin Laden declared war against us. So we have the right under the Constitution to protect ourselves. And if that means stopping every Muslim, then so be it. I mean, 13%, and this is according to the latest from the National Intelligence Agency. These stats are right up to date, within a week or two old. If 13% of them are potential terrorists, are you going to allow 1,300 people into our country every month? I mean, heck, in 6 months I'll have an army. So we have no choice but to stand for ourselves, protect ourselves. You know, as Jennifer says, the good thing that's happening out of this whole mess is firearm sales are going through the ceiling nationwide. People are coming to that realization that if I don't have that weapon on me, there's not going to be anybody there to help me. I mean, in the San Bernardino case, the police were on scene in under 5 minutes, which is the best response you're ever going to get. And it was still too late. The only way you can, literally, when you have seconds to deal with a situation, you got to be prepared to do it. And without hesitation, I mean, anybody who's trained with a firearm, I could have my gun out of its holster, have the safety off, and be returning fire probably within 3 seconds. And Jennifer could do the same. I mean, it doesn't take long to pull your firearm out. I got a round in the chamber, and all I got to do is flip the safety and then pull the trigger and aim at obviously taking the aim, but I can get a round off probably within 3 seconds. And I can stop people from, if nothing else, you hear a .45 and it's coming at you, even if it just missed you. I mean, you're going to know it. And you're going to take a defensive stance. And that gives us, as citizens, the opportunity to protect ourselves. And with that, I'll pass it back over to you, Jennifer.
Thank you, Dan. Well, this is what we've been seeing for a while now. I mean, we can't guarantee. I mean, I know that Trump took a really big leap when he said he did not want to allow any Muslims to come into this country. Well, I mean, when you look at what Muslims stand for, if a Muslim is declaring themselves a Muslim and they read and follow the Quran, what do they stand for? What do they believe in? What are they reading about? And since we are considered infidels to them, I mean, we're the enemy, and they want to take us out. So do we want to allow them to have access on American soil to get to us? I think not. I mean, it was a bold, brash statement from Trump, but I think somebody needed to say it finally. I mean, we've got people coming in from other countries that are crossing the borders. Easy. We're given, this is the thing that I don't get. Okay, so You know, I've got a dear friend of mine from Texas who is a disabled veteran, got out on medical leave, 3 tours of duty. You know, they can't tell her what's wrong with her. All they know is, you know, that every time she keeps going to the VA to try to get help, you know, they tell her that she's got to use VA doctors. She can't use civilian doctors or else she's going to have to pay for it out of pocket. There's money that's owed to her from a few years ago when she was touring, you know, in the war. And, you know, other people are getting their money, but she's not. But yet we've got illegal aliens coming across the borders that are getting, we got refugees coming across the border that are getting, you know, food cards. They're getting food stamp cards. They're getting government subsidies. They're getting into public schools. They're getting all these benefits, but yet our military servicemen and women are getting the back burner. They're the last ones on the list getting support, which tells me that our divider-in-chief has no respect for our military servicemen and women. And if he did, he would be doing the things like we had with, you know, our previous, like Ronald Reagan, President Reagan. You know, I mean, this is ridiculous. I mean, we've got veterans that are homeless on the streets that are trying to survive the best they can. They're dealing with PTSD and so many other issues, you know, but yet we've got our illegals and our refugees that are getting better care than those that are in this country that fought for our freedoms. And I don't understand. I mean, I do understand that we have people that don't have any respect for the Constitution. Our divider-in-chief is one of those. Has no respect for the Constitution whatsoever. Thinks that it's just a historical document. Doesn't breathe any life into it whatsoever. You know, we've got more law-abiding citizens behind every blade of grass that is prepared to go and do what's necessary to protect their families, their homes, their children, their communities. You know, but we've got a divider-in-chief and those around him that want to strip us of those rights. And then we've got people that are in the midst of, like the Bundys. You know, we've got another, I can't think of the name of the, maybe Scott can remember it, or Gary, but there's another farmer that's getting his land, they're trying to take his land away from him. You know, and it's all about control. All about control. All of this is about control. You know, and you see what happened in World War II when they finally took control. And the things that were able to take place as a result of. You know, and it's not happening here in the South. Like I tell them, bring it down south. You know, and we know bring it to Texas. It ain't happening. This, you know, you see what happened in San Bernardino. You know, California. You see what happened up there. You know, no gun rights, no right to bear arms. Stripped of that, you know, gun-free zones, and see what happens. Take it to Texas. What happens? They try to do the same darn thing in Texas over a drawing, a cartoon drawing, a picture drawing, and the 2 terrorists were the ones that got killed, and everybody else stayed alive. That's because we got, just like I'm saying, you know, we've got more sheriffs coming out, more police chiefs coming out saying it's time that we do our part to make sure that our citizens are armed, trained. You know, if you have never shot before, get yourself trained. Go to a gun range, find somebody that has got NRA certification, that knows what they're doing. Get involved in your local gun rights groups. We have one here in the state of Alabama. It's got over 4,000 vested members, an organization called Bama Carry. It's a 501c4. We're an educational organization, and we're determined to make sure that every American citizen in the state of Alabama that wants to learn and know more about the gun laws and Second Amendment Constitution, Second Amendment, and the laws of Alabama, we're there to make sure that they understand. And if we've got elected officials who don't quite get it, we're going to make sure that they understand the truth as well. You know, and if they're not going to comply, we're going to vote them out of office. You know, and we've got Gun Owners of America is doing a lot of fabulous things. You know, they're identifying key candidates out there that are supportive of the Second Amendment, but I look at what people are doing. It's the actions of one to another, and it's one thing to say that you're for this or you're for that, but it's another thing to put some muscle behind it and to vote, the way that you should according to the Second Amendment, no compromise. And you've got people like Jan Morgan with the gun cave out in Hot Springs, Arkansas. She came out and, declared her gun range Muslim-free. She has a reason for that. She doesn't want to train jihadists, potential terrorists. She doesn't want to be responsible for having trained those individuals. Now there's many, many other, gun ranges that are coming out and doing the same thing that she's done because they're beginning to see the writing on the wall, and they're not taking any, they're not backing down from it either. And we don't need to. Second Amendment was put in place for a reason. Glenn, what say you?
Well, you're exactly right, Jennifer. It's getting out of hand, and you're right. We are the first responders, and we must have everyone, have everyone carrying and legally, and being trained properly because like Dan was saying, it took them 5 minutes to get to the scene last Wednesday, and that's great. It's not bad, but you know what? It's too late, and we just can't have that. It's just the way Obama is running things to where there's not enough police, because of the money he's wasting. Therefore, we can't be allocated to having our security, protection, and whatever have you we need. So therefore, he's putting us in a position where we have to take it upon ourselves legally and as a defense. We're not these crazed people out there that are going out killing people. We're doing it to protect the people around us. And I mentioned something on Saturday. When it comes to the vetting process of these refugees and anyone else, rather, but in this situation with the refugees, it's like, how do I put it? Well, it's like someone hands you a bag of M&Ms, all different colors and whatever have you, and inside that bag they say that at least one of those M&Ms is can kill you. It's going to kill you. It's poisonous. It's going to kill you as soon as you take a bite of it. Now, you look at all those M&Ms, if you even want to open up the bag, and you take a look and you see them all in different colors, whatever have you, and you go, well, you know what? Do you really think that anyone would want to put their hand in there and grab one and take the chance of being killed by one of these M&Ms? Well, it's no different. It's no different than what Donald Trump is saying. You know what? Let's put them on the shelf. or at least get to each individual and see which one is the one that could kill us. In other words, the vetting process. So before we even get into going to be silly and stupid into just grabbing one and letting them come on into our body to eat it or come into our country, we need to actually have a process of making sure we know which one is going to harm us. Because we know for a fact that whether there be 10 M&Ms or 10 of these refugees or 10,000, as Dan pointed out, 13%. The Quran, Muslim, the Quran tells us right there, like you said, Jennifer, we're the infidels. They're against us. So therefore, we know that whether people want to, for the argument's sake of there's some nice Muslims out there. They're not they're the peaceful ones, and then there's these ones that are terrorists. Well, you know what? Is that an argument? Great. Well, you know what? We still have to vet to see which ones are the ones that are supposedly peaceful and the ones that are actually coming here or being or whatever or already are here to see which ones are going to harm us. Well, that takes process. You can't just say, just because of what they look like or just because. So it's not a religious thing. It's not what they look like. It's who they are. It's what they stand for and what they're doing here and what they want to do when they come over here. It's a process. Even the FBI leader and a bunch of other ones say that there's not even a vetting process in place right now. Well, all Donald Trump is trying to do is say, hey, folks, let's stop it and then get one. Stop the process by leaving them where they are for now. Even create safe zones there, that's fine. But don't bring them in here until they're vetted properly, until we have a process. Because Obama, he's part of the process of why they're here in the beginning. We need to have a process to where we need to kind of vet them to where we know who is coming here for those terrible terrorist reasons or whatever have you. And therefore, that's what we need to do. And that's all Donald Trump's trying to do is actually get to the point where, okay, let's just stop this right now before it gets any worse than what it is, because he was saying this for the most part even before this happened last Wednesday. And you know what? All this is doing is proving his point more and more and more. Well, it's not about just proving his point. It's about getting something done so we don't have to have this happen. And
right.
This is the problem. This is exactly what the problem is right now. And you know, and I'm for Ted Cruz. There's a lot of people. I love some of these conservatives and what they stand for and what they're doing for in the candidacy. I think there's a lot that have a lot. They're passionate for their country. They want to really truly help this country, and this is a great thing. So therefore, the best thing, you know, it's pretty sad that, you know, that what we're talking about is the number one issue right now is terrorism. You know, the refugees, the poor immigration, which is all connected. It's pretty sad that we have to even talk about this type of situation. But you know what? It's 14 years ago when all these when this happened with terrorism, the towers and everything that happened for 9/11. 14 years later, here we are. We're having it happen again, and you know, and there's other things around, other terrorists around. You know, at least 1,000 on the watch list right now. I mean, this is getting to the point where you want to bring more people in. I don't think so. You know, I come from Canada. I come peacefully. I come here to help this country. I've proven it. I've been here almost over 9 years now, and I'm not any much further than I was when I first came here. But the thing is, I'm not a terrorist. I'm not a threat. I'm here to help. But the thing is you know, you take that situation with what's going on right now, and you think, are these people out of their minds that they would actually go against what Donald Trump is saying? Like, who are they for? Are they for the people? You know what? You know what this does? This exposes more and more of the corruption and the connections to it, and everybody that's trying to cover up what Obama's doing. This is what it's doing right now, and Donald Trump, as I said before, he's going to come up smelling like roses. But it's not about him, and it's not about him smelling like roses. What it's about is getting this country safe again. That's what it all comes down to, folks, and that's what we need to do. So you go right ahead and you put your hand in that bag of M&Ms without finding out what you got, and you go right ahead. And you know what? That's up to you. That's your choice, but that's not America's choice. That's not America's choice. That's just a bunch of people that say they're at the top, and they want to actually do whatever they want to do to actually line their bank accounts and their wallets and whatever else and have control, as Jennifer put out there, that word control. That's what it comes down to. And you know what? What's happening is this is out of control. The whole situation is out of control because of people that want to be in control. And that's not what this country needs. That's not what the world needs, because America is the pivot for the whole world. This is the power, folks. This is where the power is, and people are abusing that power. And you know what? They're going to be knocked off their high horse. And we got people like Trump, like Cruz, like Fiorina, like Rubio, like all these people. They all have their say in taking them down. And we are the ones that are the voters. We're the ones that need to protect ourselves, because they're not protecting us, folks. These people that are in the administration right now, whether they're both sides, they're not wanting to really, really help us. It's the ones that are not in the establishment. Those are the ones like the Trumps, and even though Cruz is in the Senate, whatever have you, he's proven that he's not for corruption. He's here to expose and you know, help this country. And you know, Rubio, I don't know. He's kind of, to me, he's kind of flip-flopping and whatever have you. So I don't know. I think he's basically being somewhat of a puppet myself personally. But you know, Fiorina, you know, she's one that's. She's pretty bold if you can listen to her. She's you know, she's got a mouth on her that speaks the truth as well. So you know, we got some good people. You know, Carson, he's kind of a little kind of quiet and whatever have you. He does have like Dan said, you know, he's a doctor. He's got that bedside manner, you know, and that's great. There's places in the cabinet for that. For a Trump or a Cruz kind of a presidency or whatever have you. There's people. We have so many people that are fighting for this country. that are actually candidates, and this is a good thing. This is the best thing we've seen in decades. But at the same time, it's at a stage right now, at where we are at this point in time, where we need this political correctness to be squashed, because political correctness is what got us here. And being without Jesus Christ, in this country, we need to repent. But those two things are what's killing this country right now: is the lack of Jesus Christ in their schools and in our at our supper tables or wherever else. That is what's killing us, because people are just burying their heads, or they're using political correctness to kind of say, oh, we can't do this, can't do that. Well, you know what, folks? Political correctness is another reason why those two terrorists did what they did, because next door neighbor said, "Oh well, we didn't want to be be a racial profiling, and we don't." Folks, if you see something that you don't deem or that you deem as any kind of a threat to you, whether it be yourself or neighbors or whatever, it's better safe than sorry. You're better off to call it in. And at least you don't have that on your conscience. At least you've actually taken the step to actually do something. But if you sit there and you want to be worried about political correctness, that's the biggest reason, next to Jesus Christ being out of this whole thing, is what we need to squash is the political correctness. If we don't, then we're doomed, because this is where we're going. This is the road we're going down. We're going down there very fast, and we need to put a halt to it right away. On that note, I'll hand this over to Scott, and you can direct from there. Thank you.
Well, excellent discussion, Glenn, and you're so right. You're so very, very right. The places that we considered bad when we were kids, Russia and the Soviet Union and East Germany and these different places around the world, many of them are going in the opposite direction that we've been going, and they're coming back this way. Russia, the Ukraine, and a small handful of other countries over in that Soviet bloc area are putting Bibles back, not just putting prayer back in classroom, but putting Bibles back in the classroom. And they're using the Bibles as part of their curriculum in their public schools. And they have learned what happens when you pull God out of a society. And I don't understand why the world gets all crazy, because we as Christians have a handful of things that we look at that we understand, because of an understanding of what a creator has communicated to us, are just not good for us. Some of those are blatant and obvious. Obviously, robbing people and murdering, that's not good for society or good for you. But there's also other things, partying and different sexual circumstances that we recognize as just really not good for your personal life. Not good for you, not good for society, on disease levels and different things. And we understand that when you put God in there, you heal. And that's just a basic fact. There are a group of people in the bulk of the world, really, that says, don't tell me how to live. If I want to do that, I want to do that. And that's fine. We Christians, we let you do that. That's the world. We consider that the world. But we've got a message on making your life better, is what it really comes down to. And these Russia and the Ukraine especially, man, they've got Bibles in, I'm going to say, at least 2/3 of the classrooms over there in the Ukraine, thanks to Eastern European Missions, of whom we're going to have somebody on here after the first of the year from them and talk about the work that they're doing over there. It's absolutely fascinating. And I think Donald Trump understands that. Glenn, I wrote an article on Donald Trump. I've only written, I think, just a handful of presidential articles over the last few months. But one was on Donald Trump and an interview he did with Yellowhammer Radio down there in Alabama, where he talked about the war on Christians, the war on Christmas, that he was going to fight that with everything he had, that we were letting all these Syrians in, and this is a long time before Paris. We were letting all these Syrians in, and they were all Muslim. We're not letting the Christian Syrians in. Why is this? He was asking those questions later. And we're a country founded on freedom of religion, and I don't have a problem with a Muslim believing in a peaceful application of their religion, just like anybody else's religion. I don't have a problem with that. But it's obvious that what is going on, that the attacks that are being prepared are being prepared from within that religion. And you have to stop that somehow. And Glenn, excellent illustration. One M&M out of a bunch of them is cyanide. Jennifer was using that same illustration with Skittles about 3 weeks ago. If you got a couple of Skittles and a thing of 50, are you gonna take a couple? If two of them are laced with cyanide. We are in a time when we've just got to be really, really careful. And I really firmly believe that Donald Trump just knocked over the wall of political correctness on this. And I believe common sense solutions have got the ability to come out. And I believe that all of our candidates have an ability now to just flat out discuss this. Because Donald Trump's taken the arrow on this one. He's the bad guy. They're going to sound like they're making common sense. And it really is a really good blow to the left's tactic of name-calling and ad hominem as a tactic to win debates. I'm going to tell you, Donald Trump right now is the world's best thing that we could ask for because he is being the CEO of the primary season. It's a whole other discussion on whether we want him to be president or not. I've got a lot of reasons I'd love for him to be president. I've got some concerns. But that's not this discussion. What is Donald Trump doing for this primary season? And he is enabling the good candidates to have huge airtime. He has kept, during what is generally kind of a slow season for the news, when it comes to presidential primaries, a lot of people aren't looking at the primaries until the last few months, and especially the last 6 weeks. Generally, that's not on people's radar. Donald Trump has put this on a lot of people's radar that generally aren't paying attention until when it's just about time to vote. Which is absolutely incredible. He's got Jeb Bush down, folks, and believe me, this is Donald Trump is enabling this, and it was our scare that Jeb Bush was going to win this. He is down below 4%, folks, on the Real Clear Politics, and that means he's averaging that. It's horrific numbers for him, the worst he's ever had. He's down there with a bunch of them below 4%. They all just need to walk away. If we had each one of their 3 or 4% that they represented to throw up there in the top and see where it landed, it would make it interesting. I would love to call for Jeb Bush and Kasich and Fiorina and Huckabee and Santorum and Graham, all of them, just drop out. Let's set those guys up there. Let them have it at it now. For the next 3 months. And we see a primary a lot like what the Democrats had with Hillary Clinton, Edwards, and Obama. The Democrats have got more control over their primary. That's been one of our problems. Nobody's really been in control of the primary. Donald Trump's been the only one that's really done anything about these debates. When it all comes down to it, the Reince Priebus and the RNC promised us 2 years ago that they would make big headway with that. I've seen very little action on that actually came out to any substance. Obviously, we already had at least one debate this season that was hugely out of line, and it went on, and how. But, of course, if you take the Donald Trump approach, you can take that and turn it around on them. And we did. We turned it around on them, and the media lost. They really, really lost. And man, I do. I'm not jumping into this and crowning my pick. I promised I wasn't going to do that because I love being at the local level. It's a whole lot more fun. We're going to be talking about Tim Spillman running for sheriff of Kaufman County here soon. But I'll tell you, Donald Trump is the most powerful thing that we could have helping to CEO the Republican primary season. He's brought a large handful of Reagan Democrats, that mentality back. He has brought out a bunch of Republicans who really just been lackadaisical the last few election cycles because it started to look like no matter what you did, nothing went right. and he's energized a bunch of them. He's got really good numbers in the minority votes. There's just some numbers, big block numbers there in that race with Donald Trump that are amazing. So it's going to be interesting as we watch forward. And Gary, you're up there in those Dakotas. Is it snowing up there yet, my friend? Are you going to be sitting in 20 foot of snow up there, or are you going to get down here to Texas before the snow starts so you can get out?
Well, it's been pretty nice, really. We have El Nino, and it's been above normal temperature and below normal moisture. We have a little bit of a sprinkle early this morning, but it really didn't amount to anything. It's just like when I wake up in the morning, it's just a nice light frost, and then when it gets around 10, 11 o'clock, it starts to thaw. So it's almost like a March or an April day. It's like spring up here, It's just strange because we have water. It was a little snow that we had earlier, but that's not really impeding anything. So the weather's been really good. In fact, since the winter of 2010 and 2011, where we had that last major blizzard or major winter where we had a lot of snow, it's been pretty mild since then. So I'm not complaining. It's nice and warm. It doesn't take much fuel to heat the house because we're not having 20 or 30 below zero. So it's nice right up here.
How cold does it get up there? When it hits real cold, what is it up there in your area?
Well, like a record low, it's probably gotten 48 below,
Oh, my land.
It's probably maybe once or twice in a lifetime, but we've had 60 below, 70 below wind chills. I remember, I believe in 96, 97, we've had a couple of cold days, and I was sitting out there on the tractor scooping snow, and I would put like 3 pairs of socks on, and I'd put 2 coats on, a pair of coveralls over the top, and a couple of gloves, and I could go pretty much all afternoon, but my hands and feet would start to feel it about 4 hours later. I could start to feel the cold going through, but it can get pretty raw up here. So, but it's like I said, I wish it was like this every winter. It is beautiful out. So,
well, I bet you're enjoying. And see, in California, our lows were down. If it got down below 10, it was a pretty miserable situation. I'll come visit you, Gary, as long as it's above 70.
Yeah, I hear it's pretty nice down there, but I don't even. How cold does it get where you guys live? I know, where do you guys live in California?
Well, when I was in California, I was in Springville, which is in the Sierra Nevadas foothills, just out of the Joaquin Valley, and that valley generally gets down to it hits below 30 occasionally during the winter. But the thing is about there is it dips down to that cold and it stays that way for a long time. And see, once you start getting snow, it's going to be there for a long time. What I like about Texas is it'll jump down to 30 degrees, but we know in 2 days it's going to be back up to 70. So we can deal with it. And in the summertime, the same thing. You've got a little bit of humidity. That's all right. But, it doesn't really pop above 100 very often. And it's okay when it does. It'll be back down to 80. That's why Glenn and I live here in the beautiful Metroplex area of Dallas and Fort Worth, where it is absolutely beautiful. We have all kinds of. John LaRosa has appointed me the tourism czar of the state of Texas. We have all kinds of refugee programs going on right now. We are a firm believer in refugees here in the state of Texas, and we are taking refugees from all 50 states where their government is not cooperating with the people and is siding with Obama. So come on down. We've got some different programs. We have a program just for you, Gary, actually. It's been offered to Barb Simcoe up in Michigan, and Tammy Silver up in Wisconsin, and Teresa Brusky up in Minnesota. And it is the Great Arctic States Migration to the Great State of Texas program. And all that you have to be qualified is if you live where it snows more than about 3 foot and stays more than 2 weeks.
Okay.
So you're fully qualified for that program. We'll put you on the list. We'll get you down here.
Okay. Well, wife and me are planning to come down there this later on this next summer. If we can get everything.
I know you are, and we're looking forward to that. And Jennifer Montrose and you, I'm not sure that you've met. She was asking who's Gary there earlier. And because she's not on Saturday Symposium with us, but I wanted to introduce you to Jennifer Montrose, Gary, our good friend. Gary's been calling in on Contending for Truth Radio for a while now. He called in on when we had the Politichicks, when we had Morgan Brittany and the Politichicks on Con Over You.
Yeah, that was when was it? The summer of 2014, I think. July 10th. I got the date. Yep.
Very good. I'll put you in charge of archives. But Gary calls in a lot on Saturdays and joins the discussion, Jennifer. And so I wanted to introduce you and let you both say hi to each other.
Well, hi, Jennifer. How are you? I've talked to her before.
It's good to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
We tell everybody if you want to migrate to the south from up north, if all that progressive liberalism is getting the best of you, especially if you live in the moonbeam state of California.
I know
what you mean. South,
I know what you mean, but we're actually up in North Dakota, Jennifer. We're quite conservative up here. We're really conservative.
That's good.
We have.
We just need to make sure we get all those people out there voting.
Pardon me?
We need all those conservatives to go vote. Vote Republican.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but up here, I was just going to mention up here. We probably have one of the lowest crime rates in the nation, and I tell everybody, I said we have more guns than people up in this state, so we're well armed.
That's probably why you have a low crime rate.
Very, very low crime rate, and that's probably the cold weather contributes. But we also have a good values. There's a lot of churchgoers in this state, and I think that really helps. Because people. We raise our children to believe in God. You have a few, bad apples, but most of the people turn out pretty good. I'm not complaining. The people are friendly. You can come up here. They probably won't. They won't even know you, but they'll still wave at you. So.
Yeah.
And
about
Gary,
the community I'm in.
What's that?
Gary, I'm glad we brought this up because I want to take this in a little direction because you live in a good area, and the statistics show it. The Dakotas are having some pretty good economic growth as well. There's a lot of things going on. Tell me about living in North Dakota. What's the politics like? You have good contact with your House people like we do down here in Texas, and your state Senate people. Is politics? I know you can't have the same schedule we have down here because Texas has like an election every 6 weeks. I've never seen anything like it. We've got one coming up in a couple of months. But what's the politics like up there? Does it slow down in the wintertime? I would imagine to a crawl. What's it like living up there?
Oh, it's pretty mellow. You're pretty much, it slows down a little in wintertime. But one thing about North Dakota, and especially a few years back, if you wanted to visit with the governor, you could just walk right in and visit with him. It wasn't like other states where they have bodyguards, but right here people are so friendly that they don't even have to have bodyguards. It might be a little different now, but back I remember when I was younger, we'd go in and have a cup of coffee with them. You can't do that now probably, but back 15 years ago, I should say, but 15 years ago probably. But I remember you could go in and we get to meet the politicians. In fact, I got a lot of them on Facebook that are local politicians, and of course I got the Attorney General on there, Wayne Stenstead. I got him on my list. I talk to him occasionally, and he's a nice guy, very conservative. But he doesn't talk about his politics too much. It's more of a family thing. That's what a lot of people use Facebook for. But I visit with him now and then. So there's a lot of local politicians, and they're a lot. What I like about North Dakota, they're a lot more closer to the people, probably down to earth, and it's a lot different than national. This seems like when they get into the federal government, it seems like they change or something. This time, I think what happens, they get pressured by the leaders, to do certain things. So, but anyway, it's a lot different up here. It's,
right. Well, and the security concerns rise fundamentally. And we even see this with Ted Cruz. 2 years ago, I could have walked up to Ted Cruz at a number of different times and shook his hand and just had conversation with him. He's pretty well protected anymore, and I think that denigrates kind of, Gary, the system that we've got. And I think that's one of the reasons why, and I love Texas for the exact same reason. We've got this super good contact with our state and our local government. Where out in California, that was absent. I had absolutely, the only person I had in the state that I had a contact with and decent communication with was Tim Donnelly, who ran for governor in the primary and did not win. But Tim Donnelly was the only one out in California, and I was willing there to help any of them. And you just, here in Texas, up there in North Dakota, sounds exactly the same way. You've got this mentality of they understand that they're working for the people, that they are servants for the people. And you've lost, in the places you've lost that, you just don't have that contact. And I'll tell you, I'm going to have to come up there one of these days and see the Dakotas. Again, it's been a long time. It's been up since I was a kid, since I was in that actual area. I've been in Montana and Idaho as an adult. Have not been back over to the Dakotas. Going to have to plan on that. Gary, find us a couple of good people from North Dakota, and we'll have them on a show one night, and we'll make North Dakota the highlight. And talk about all the reasons, because and I'm going to take this and I'm going to pass this to Jennifer next, because I want to tie this together. Jennifer Montrose lives in the 7th District of Alabama, and the 7th District of Alabama is the poorest district in the country, and it's the poorest district in the country with the most rich, wonderful dirt for agriculture there is in the country. But Democratic policies for the lifetime of its existence, basically, have made it a very, very poverty-stricken district. And when Jennifer and I have supported, especially Jennifer, her being there, candidates in that district, we've always said that this is a poster child for why the left makes what it makes. And places like North Dakota, Gary, are proving that conservative basic principles, and you nailed it on the head, most people believe in God, most people go to church. You got a few bad apples, but for the most part, you've got a society that is self-maintaining morals and its values. Exactly. And that is affected down the line, and that is how you solve problems like San Bernardino and make them slow down.
Exactly.
Is how, if you want to fix that solution, you got to fix it from the other side. You can't just you could have 5 times the gun control regulations. California is the poster child, you may say, of gun regulations. It's their wish list. They would love to have that in Washington, D.C. That would be better than they've ever thought they could get, and it did not work.
You know something, Scott? One thing, when my wife we were talking one time, I said California would be a beautiful state to retire in. But I said there's so many regulations. I said I have like about 40 guns, 'cause I collect them. I do a lot of shooting. I enjoy it. I mean, in fact, I just went out a couple of days ago and did a little shooting. It's a lot of fun. I said they'd probably throw me in jail if I brought my guns down there, because some of them probably are illegal. They're fine up here, but down there, they'd be, considered a destructive device. So,
right.
And of course, the high taxation.
Off-duty police officers can't carry in California.
That is sad. That really
friends
is.
in California who are cops. My good friend Brent Bishel used to work as a Porterville police officer. Has now gone out to a correctional facility. He just really got tired of all the politics in the police department of that little town and the insanities that were actually going on. But yeah, he cannot carry a weapon if he's off duty. And that's just insanity. But it just goes to show, and Barbara Boxer said not too long ago, gun control works. We've proved it in California. Yeah, you proved it. You proved that it doesn't work.
If it works so well. If it works. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to.
I think that we're winning this. Mm-hmm. I think Barack Obama would like to see chaos. But there are statistics that twice as many people now, since 2003, own weapons. There's twice as many weapons that are legally bought. The American people are arming themselves. Gun control regulations have been being deregulated, and gun crime has dropped significantly over the last decade.
Mm-hmm.
So we know what works. You know, Gary?
Exactly. And I was just going to say, I mean, if these gun-free zones are such great places, then why is the White House armed up like a fortress? You wouldn't get a half mile there. And look at Barbara Boxer. We were just talking. I bet she has bodyguards are armed up, just armed up with probably semi-automatic or maybe even full automatic weapons. I mean, she isn't going to be out there with no bodyguards. They're not going to surrender their rights. It's just us that they want us to give up,
I see. It's people like that. I wish you could get a camera in front of their face and ask, "Do you have guns in your home?"
Well, remember I was telling you about a couple liberal celebrities. I asked them. They go into the debate about gun control, and I usually end the debate by just saying, "I said, do you have armed bodyguards to protect you?" And that stops it right there. Usually I get blocked afterwards, but it ends the debate. So. I think
like.
A cousin of mine, he used to be a bodyguard for a lot of celebrities, and of course he'd tell us about North Dakota. He told about our family, and anyway, he told him I like to shoot, and a couple of them wanted to see my gun collection. But I don't know if you heard of. I know you heard of Patrick Swayze, but he was a real good friend of Doug. Doug is the guy's name, and
okay.
And he unfortunately he got sick, and he passed away, but. He was going to come up and bring him up here and show him my gun collection because I have quite an exotic gun collection, and but after he was telling about me, he said to me, "Oh, they all want to meet you," and I said, "Well, right now," I said, "I don't feel too loved. About 25, 30 of them got me blocked. They don't want nothing to do with me." So anyway, I mean, last time I saw him anyway, but anyway. I'll let you. I'll pass it over to you again there. So.
Okay. Well, and Jennifer, I want to bring you back in on this because it really is. We've got examples. It's really getting blatant. It really is. 30 years ago, it wasn't so blatant, but it's really blatant today. You can look at California. You can look at Detroit. You can look at Chicago. You can look at New York. You can look at Miami. And you can see that the direction that the left will take us. You can look at Europe. You can look at the Eastern Bloc countries who have seen it and are coming back this direction. In Great Britain, you can't even sing "I'm Being Swallowed by a Boa Constrictor." You know that because it goes against animal rights. Songs that degrade animals are against the law in Great Britain. They took a step too far. They found out it burned them, and they're on their way back. You can take places like Alabama and Texas and North Dakota and different places in the country where you can see that God is still respected, and you can see the results of that. And you can take Alabama 7 and show what happens when the government just regulates the living daylights out of everything so nobody's doing anything. You can see that. These things are the pieces of our argument that we need to be throwing to the people that don't ever pay attention to what's going on. Because the left loses them in this very tries-to-be complicated argument. And we've got the basic truths. And we've got the examples to back it up. I'll tell you, I would be very tempted to move back up to the north end of the United States along there for a lot of reasons. The snow keeps me from even thinking about it. If I could get the weather I got down here up there, I would probably live in the northern United States. Some beautiful country, so on and so forth. But Jennifer, I'm bringing you in on that because you and I have had this discussion a zillion times, if not 2 zillion times. And there in the 7th District is some excellent illustrations that if the American people just saw it and really looked at it, they'd get it.
Well,
Jennifer? Oh, there you are.
I'm here. Well, you know what I'll tell you? We got people here in the 7th District that are losing their jobs left and right. The coal miners are getting laid off left and right, you know, and they want some help. They're just trying to figure out. I mean, and this is just the current stuff that's happened with the, you know, the coal industry, and then we've had U.S. Steel, you know, and this is all District 7, and these are people's livelihoods, people that have grown up generation after generation with families, excuse me, that are in the coal industry. You know, and they just they didn't get any other education. They didn't get trained in anything else. Now all of a sudden, you know, we've got a minimum of 400 people getting laid off in an area, and it's right here in Christmas time, you know, and you know, and people just want to know that they're going to be able to keep the lights on, you know, and put food on the table, and they're not even sure how they're going to get Christmas to their kids. You know, when is Santa coming? You know, and all that stuff. And we know that in other coal mine towns, this is happening in other areas too, not just in Alabama District 7. You know, but we're seeing a surge of people that are listening presidential election cycle, you know, and because they've been hurt by Obamacare. They thought they could trust it. I got a friend of mine who's been dealing with cancer, and she got on Obamacare to begin with, and it was great. And then all of a sudden, with all the testing that she had to get done and all the other chemo that she had to do, all of a sudden the Obamacare reality started to sit in with her, and now she can't stand it. You know, it starts out looking decent, you know, and then in the end, you know, it's really a nightmare. And we're seeing this a lot of places, and I think right now that's why you've got so many people from all walks of life that are resonating with Donald J. Trump, because they're saying he didn't have to carve my turkey at Thanksgiving for me. I don't have to cook his dinner for him. I don't have to wash his clothes. You know, he's not in my home on an everyday basis. You know, I don't have to deal with that. But he's a man who has said that I have the ability to secure the border. I have the ability to communicate with people in foreign countries. I have the ability things happen, and he's got experience in doing that. You know, when he wants something to happen, he just makes it happen, and he's got savvy business people around him and other people around him to make those decisions. People are hearing this kind of thing, and I think, you know, and even with Ted Cruz, I'll tell you this, you know, a lot of people are looking at Ted Cruz, and, you know, he's saying things that are not necessarily the norm either, you know, and but we look at the establishment that's backing Rubio, you know, and we know that Rubio has waffled back and forth between supporting illegal immigration, you know, and amnesty to, you know, he keeps going back and forth, and he's waffled a lot on the issue of Second Amendment, you know, and like you said, we've seen, you know, over the course of time, as we get closer to the primaries, you start to see people peter out, dwindle away, you know, and the front runners begin to really shine. And these are the people with staying power, you know, and I think people are looking for somebody that can't be bought off. They want somebody that's not beholden to lobbyists, you know, that are not going to be told what to do. You know, and I think one of the things that really resonated with me was when Trump said that, you know, when Bush starts talking about refusing to allow American companies to go over on foreign soil, you know, and he very well may believe that and mean that when he says that,
But the lobbyists are going to come after him when it's time for them to get their deals made, and they're going to cash in on the money they gave him and demand that he owe them favors. And that's when you're going to see these companies going overseas. And we have a man right now who is self-funding his own campaign. And I think that's what a lot of people are looking at. You know, yes, we have people that in their past were, like Ronald Reagan was a Democrat for a long time. You know, and he was not guaranteed, as far as the polls go and the percentages, to win the election. You know, but I think because he wasn't the norm as an actor, and he had so many other things, you know, that resonated with the American people on the left and the right. You know, but I mean, I understand. I mean, we've got the propaganda, the media propaganda that wants to do everything they can to ensure that he does not get the nomination in the general election. But I really, you know, think that once a good, solid ground game gets established, that we're going to start seeing some things really take hold. You know, and with that, I'm going to pass it on over to Glenn. I know we're getting close to being at the top of the hour, 11 p.m. Central Time, Texas time, Southern Time. Anyway, but you know, it's been a good show tonight. I've enjoyed the topic of discussion, and you know, I'm just really glad to see that in the midst of all that's been going on, that our gun sales are really surging. You know, our gun sales are really surging. Glenn, back to you.
Well, you're exactly right, Jennifer. And I'm not sure if we, Scott, did you, is Dan still around with us here? Haven't heard from him in a while.
Yeah, I'm still here. Just got
there you
jumped
go.
over, that's all.
And that's okay. I wasn't sure how this was going, but anyways, I'll pass it over to you, Dan, first, just kind of get it back there and whatever like that, and then just kind of we can move it around a bit.
Okay, then I'll pass it back over to you. Okay. Well, I agree with Jennifer on the point where Trump is definitely resonating, and he has done more for the GOP than anyone since Reagan. He has also gotten more people involved in politics again, and this is something this country sorely needed. For so many years, people just said, I'm just one person and I can't change anything. And they just allowed Washington to run amok. And it's nice that finally we're getting somebody in there who is willing to actually take the reins and is willing to say what needs to be said. And I brought up General Patton because when you reach flag officer in the Army or in the military in general, you are a politician. And Patton proved that. Patton was in trouble almost the entire war. But he did things that no other general was able to do. And that's what Trump is. Trump is going out there and saying things that no one else is willing to say because they're too frightened if they're going to upset people. And this is why I say he has a very good chance of winning the presidency. We need somebody with, some nerve who's going to go out and call it the way it is. And Trump, the fact is, he may not have done it in in the world of politics, but you know something? If we started running our country like a corporation, we'd be a heck of a lot better off. I mean, I'm talking straight across the board. The reason companies are leaving our country and leaving our borders is because they can't afford to do business in our country. We have the highest tax rates in the world when it comes to corporations. So we have no choice but corporate America has no choice. If they want to keep their shareholders happy, and what the Democrats don't understand is anybody who has a 401k, that's you and I. We're the shareholders. And it's the companies that hold our 401s who make those decisions. And if that company is not making money for us, then they're obliged to move to somewhere where it will. So, I mean, corporate America does not want to move abroad, but they have no choice. The only salvation we have is if we get somebody in there who understands business, who understands economics, who's willing to do the appropriate things. And one of them is going to be lowering corporate tax rates. If we do that, then you're going to put people back to work. You'll start seeing manufacturing returning to this country because it's actually more expensive for a company. I mean, if they had good tax rates in this country, it would be more advantageous to do all your business in one country.
Mm-hmm.
And you could bring manufacturing back to this country. You could reestablish the middle class. And see, people don't understand that. Trump does. Cruz I like too, but again, he wavers a little bit because he is controlled to some extent by those who are donating to him or donating to his campaign. Same problem that Rubio has. Trump is the only person who has no one to answer to. He's the only person that's totally self-reliant. So nobody can buy him off. No lobbyist or no lobbying group can afford to do that. I mean, face it, when you got $12 billion or $12 billion plus, who's going to be in a position where you can buy somebody off? I mean, you'd have to give Trump billions of dollars before it would be even worth his while. So, I mean, he's kind of in the same position as Bill Gates. You can't buy him off. Bill Gates is doing negative things, but that's under his own accord. There's a certain percentage of people who are just in that position where they have too much money for anybody to purchase them. And Trump is in that group. So this is why I like him, is that he can say what he wants to say, and he has the ability to draw people into him. It's hard to dislike Trump. I mean, this is why he's touching the minorities. This is why he's touching the left. He's a person that people can believe in, and we haven't had an individual like that in a long time. With that, I'll pass it back over to you, Glenn.
Well, thank you very much, Dan. You're right. It's what it comes down to, is Donald Trump himself is working for the people. He's saying what everyone or big majority of what people have been thinking, have been wanting to say, and not been able to really say it because of them being feared or whatever. And he's waking people up. He's the silent majority is not silent anymore to a great extent. He's moved Democrats over from the Liberals and Democrats over to his campaign, his way of thinking, not way of thinking, but just they got someone that that actually is thinking the way they are, and so therefore it's really shifted quite a bit. And I like how Scott puts it. He's the CEO. He really is. He's basically, and we've said this for months. Since June 16th. And since he come out to be the candidate, one of the candidates, POTUS, and he basically has taken a lot of things on his own, and really moved the GOP, the people to have more nerve. Like Ted Cruz, he was one that was talking a lot about the illegals and whatever for as long as I can remember. And Donald Trump, he's just painted a better picture and a bigger focus on it, and that's given Ted Cruz more of a voice in that too. So he's really bringing everybody up. And that's the thing, is whether he's the president in the end or not, the thing is he's really struck a nerve that that's been laying dormant for so long with so many people. And they're saying, yeah, that's what I wanted you to hear. Well, that's what I want to hear. That's what I want you to say, because I've been thinking that. And now people are actually even saying it themselves, just the guy next door, right up through to the other candidates, So he's really struck a nerve, and it's amazing what he's done with this. And it's at the perfect time. And Trump has many times been playing with the idea of running for office and whatever over Roger Stone. My wife, my beautiful wife Lisa, and we met him a couple times, and Roger Stone has known Donald Trump for 37 years, and we got some firsthand insight towards Donald Trump from Roger Stone. I mean, much more people that know Donald Trump more than Roger Stone. But at the same time, is he has said that Donald Trump's in this to win it. Roger's been after him since '88 and 2000 or whatever to actually get him to run. Since '88, since back when Ronald Reagan was completed his term and that. But since 2000, and Donald Trump's kind of like, I don't know. And see, Donald Trump, he's doing it now because it's the right time. When you're in a business that Donald Trump is in, when timing is everything, it's like everything is timing is everything. But Donald Trump knows when to get into something, and he knows when to get out of something, and he knows the timing is now, because it's a timing for him and his family. It's a timing for America. It's just a right time for him to get in. And that's why this time, a lot of people were saying, no, he's not going to run, no, he's not going to do this. And everybody's been counting him out. Every month they've been saying, oh, no, he's just this, he's just that, he's just that, he's going to get out in the fall. Here we are, it's December, and he's still on top. And, so therefore, all these people that thought he was going to just, either just get out of the race or not do very well or whatever, he's proven them all wrong. And he comes up smelling like roses every time. So that's the thing that people have to understand. That you mentioned it spot on, Dan. He's got a business that he's run for so long, and he's had some hard times too. He's had some really hard times in business in the '90s, the early '90s, and that. He lost pretty much everything, had to start over again. I mean, so he knows. And people can say, oh, that's a bad thing. If you know how to be successful, it takes you. So sometimes there's failures in there. There's some failures in there to get you to be even more successful. So he's been there, done that on almost every level you can possibly dream of. Who else can say that? I mean, seriously, there's no other candidate that can say that. On so many different levels, and he's number one on so many of these polls, individual ones for economy, for foreign, for all these. He's number one on so many of them, if not all of them. And so therefore, he's not just saying something or whatever and has no substance behind it. He has a lot of substance. The thing is people are that's a threat to them. It's a threat to the establishment people and whatever have you. So that's why they don't like him. And for him to have this lead for so long and have these death threats and have all these things against him, people got to say, hey, that's the time to wake up, folks. That means that he's doing something right. Is he perfect? No. I don't know anyone else that is. But at the same time, as he is for Christians, he is for America, and people are wondering, okay, in his business, how's that going to pan out with, if he does become the president, is he going to benefit from this? Well, you know what? The thing is the regulations within business themselves. That's what's killing business as it is, and he's going to release a lot of these regulations, whatever. So sure his businesses are going to thrive more and whatever. But that's how it works. If you have the government putting a chokehold on your business, if you're not strong enough to withhold that in the hard times, you're not going to survive. And this is why we've lost a lot of these businesses. That's why they've went to other countries and whatnot. He's saying let's get China, get our smarts back on and get all the jobs from China back from China, from Japan, from Mexico. That's what we need to have. So with all these things that he's got all the connections that needs to get things done, and he'll have an amazing cabinet because the guy doesn't run a business the way he's run and not have good people. So he knows it's not just about him; it's about the people that will be supportive with him in his cabinet, and to make this well-oiled machine run. And that's what it's all about. So, like I said, we'll wait and see for the primary and see how everything, the nominee and what have you, and see how it plays itself out. But he's not. I don't think he's going anywhere. I mean, there's talk about different people are saying he's going to bow out eventually and whatever have you. No, he's not going to bow out. I don't believe that. Some people have told me, Roger Stone for one, has said no, he would not have come into it if he didn't think he could win it, because there's it's just the right timing. If that was the case, he would have tried this many times before, and if it was just some kind of a farce or whatever, just a name recognition type thing, he wouldn't. He's not playing that kind of game. He has a lot to lose. He's given up a lot, himself to run for this. So it's not really as what some people might think. He's doing this to win it. And anything other than that, it'd be just a waste of his time, he says. So we'll see how it all pans out with everything. But I think he's one that's actually right now. I think he's the one that's the only thing we have left to glue this country back together again properly. And he really is the strongest point that doesn't have any kind of lobbyists, like you say, Dan, and whatnot. He doesn't have anybody of special interest groups or whatever to buy him off and to do whatever. So at least that much we know, that he's not getting bought and whatnot, and he's not a puppet that way. If anything, he's tapping into the heart of America, and that's the people that are fed up with what's going on, and they're saying, okay, you know what? I'm going to tell them that I'm going to do what they want me to do. I'm not going to tell them what they want to hear. He's got a lot to lose if he doesn't. So therefore, he's got a lot of connections that he could lose if he's not, because you got to remember, the people are the biggest part of this country, not the government. Whether they want to believe it or not, we're taking it back, and that's what's happening here. And he knows that. He's not stupid. So people have to think about that a little too. That it does affect his business in a lot of ways. Or he wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't going to do it for the people, because he knows that the people they're sick of this. We're sick of this, and he's tapping into the right nerve. So on that note, I'll hand it over to Scott, and we'll see where it's going from here. We're getting close to the top of the hour.
Well, very true, Glenn. And I'll tell you, there are a zillion reasons to really appreciate what Donald Trump could do in the White House, and have been. And I know people have got issues with certain issues. When it comes to the Second Amendment, he basically stood where many Republicans did in the 80s, including Ronald Reagan, that some gun control, go ahead, give them some of what they want. And they've already gotten it. And Donald Trump says it very plainly. Times have changed. I don't believe in any gun control, and so he's changed his positions on some things, and I have some issues with certain things that he said in the past. But there is a plethora of reasons to really appreciate what he could accomplish as President of the United States. And I really believe we're going to have a different primary season this time than we've ever had. And I do know that Donald Trump has been purposely doing everything he can to manipulate this primary season a certain direction. And I'll tell you, he's doing an incredible job of it. We've needed it for a long, long time. We've needed somebody. I'll tell you the one thing. If it took one thing to really sell me on Donald Trump, it would be this. And that is when Donald Trump talks about his wall, his great, big, beautiful wall, and the great, big, beautiful door. Donald Trump is the first candidate in years I've been saying, talk about the door. You don't just talk about the wall. You got to talk about the fact that you want good immigrants to come in like we always have. We're an immigrant nation. That's what the Statue of Liberty is all about. Make it patriotic. And Donald Trump's the only one talking about the door, the great, big, beautiful door. And I'll tell you, he's laying out the message of the Republican primary season, and he's having a great, incredible impact. It's going to be interesting to see. We got Christmas. Everything's going to be really kind of slowed down. Everybody's going home, and the campaigns are suspending for Christmas time. A lot of things that they do. But January, February, and March are going to be coming up, and it's going to be the race towards those caucus states and those primary states. And we're going to see a lot of change over the next 3 months. What happens to Ben Carson? Where does he go? What happens with this Rubio and Cruz fight as they're moving up and passing Carson? What happens between them and Donald Trump? I'll tell you, so far, Donald Trump has been very, very good at throwing snowballs when he needed to throw snowballs and cooperating with when he needed to cooperate with. And it is the candidates who have discovered that, who have been playing ball with Donald Trump, who have been getting somewhere. And again, this issue of Muslims in our country, Donald Trump handed over the conversation to everybody, and they've got an opportunity to pick up and run with it and do it right, and enjoy that trailwind of Donald Trump in the media, or they can sit and talk about how bad Donald Trump is. And I'll tell you, the ones that are winning right now are the ones that are playing ball. And like I said, O'Malley finally picked up the snowball. I really think he's been listening to us, Glenn, because you and I have had that discussion a number of times. And I've always mentioned that O'Malley, he didn't pick up that snowball, and he had an opportunity to really make some name recognition, and he didn't do it. And he did it this last week, and we'll see what happens. The primary, the Democrats really let the primary go far enough past that things are pretty settled right now. Somebody coming in at this point in a primary season is just hard. It can be done, but it's very, very hard. So it's going to be interesting to watch it as it goes out. We will be talking about all of it here on Contending for Truth Radio. I know we've got to be getting to the point where, well, no, I won't hear. We might even be past that point. I don't even know what time it is. If Margaret Thatcher doesn't start talking to me in my ear, I just keep going. I think Margaret Thatcher's already talked to you, hasn't she, Dan? Dan there? Hello?
I'm
you
here.
Might be on mute.
I forgot to damn mute. She has said all she's going to say for the night until we get cut off at 3 or at 1. Or
right
1
on. We got
time.
rid of Margaret Thatcher then, right?
Yep, she's
now
gone.
We can party. She's been pestering us since the beginning of the show, you know, but she's finally gone to bed. Yay!
Well, most of our people listen in archive anyway, so.
That's right. They do.
So
if you're in the archive right now, you're listening. You're not listening live and we want to appreciate the people that have listened this far for sure. I want to mention who Margaret Thatcher is, so our listeners don't just think we went off the deep moment we went offline. As you call into the show on the host number, And when you're in the queue in the beginning before the show starts, you hear this British woman who does this countdown for you every minute in the green room, and then at the end of the show, she counts down 90, 60, and 30 seconds before the show is out. And she's kind of British, so we've coined her Margaret Thatcher. She directs us, but she's not going to pester us the rest of the night, I don't think. She gets really rude at the end of the night. After you've gone into archive, she doesn't come back and say anything. She just pulls the plug. Like the mom that walks in the door at 11 o'clock and the kid's still playing the video game, and she walks over to the plug and just unplugs it and turns around and walks back out. Margaret Thatcher is a no-nonsense kind of lady running our blog talk for us.
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, come an hour from now, she'll just... and that's it.
That's it. Right. Sometimes at 45 minutes. I think we're supposed to get an hour, but there's been times when it's glitched in the past and cut it off at 45 minutes and at a half an hour. Sometimes, man, she just has enough and she just pulls the plug.
I guess she
we're
gets tired
going to continue to have great conversations in the future. You can catch Dan and Glenn and I, or possibly just Dan and Glenn, and Gary on Saturday Symposium. I haven't quite yet got back to normal, and in the next 2 weeks, the last 2 weeks of our annual passes, so you might be on in the next couple of weeks running it yourself. But you guys are doing great. You don't need me. You're having a great time. But you can catch it talking about politics and all of this stuff then. Man, I just really think it's going to be a fascinating 2016. If we look back, and you know, we can keep going if you want. When you look back at a year ago and before, what we talked about when we discussed the 2016 election was that we pretty much knew Jeb Bush was going to be thrown at us. And Hillary Clinton. And, you know, Jeb Bush he can't get any lower. Man, he's been this low in the polls. And he's had a bad time all the way through. But he's in really big trouble. Hillary Clinton looks like she could win that primary. And if she is, she will be formidable. But, you know, she's got a lot of year to make it through. And I'll tell you, Bernie Sanders is their Ron Paul, and man, he's going to give them fits. Rodney and I talked about that on the radio yesterday, and Rodney kind of doesn't think that the Democrats are going to be quite like the Ron Paul people, and I don't think so either. I think that the numbers will be less, but you're going to have a lot of Bernie Sanders people that if Hillary Clinton wins that, are going to be Ron Paul mentality, I'm not going to play this game anymore. And so it's going to be interesting as we go forward. But we've got some great shows like that. We'll talk about stuff like that this next Saturday. We've got Monday Conover, me and Rodney Lee Conover. You know, guys, I think before I left on vacation, we were supposed to have John Stevens, the author of the book, The Sissification of America. Good friend. He's been on our shows before. Have good communication with him on a pretty regular basis. Great guy, teacher out in the San Bernardino area. And we're going to have him on. I think we were supposed to have him on tonight. I think we kind of tentatively planned that before I went on vacation, and I think I was off a week. Anyways, but we'll hopefully maybe have him on next week. And so with that, I'm going to pass it around. You guys have anything else to say? We don't have to hang up if we don't want to hang up.
I don't care. I mean, go ahead, Gary, and then I'll take it.
Well, I just want to say I really enjoyed tonight, and it was nice visiting with all of you. And you guys are talking about coming up to the Dakotas. I tell you what, you come to Jamestown, that's where the wife and me are from. We'll take you guys out for a nice meal. How's that sound?
Oh, it sounds wonderful as long as it's summer.
Yeah, it'll be summertime.
I'm there.
It's beautiful up here in the summer. So anyway, I'll pass it to the next guy.
Okay,
or
that's
girl,
me.
or gal.
And I mean, I agree. I would love to see North Dakota. I've never seen the Dakotas. It's been the one part of the country I've never been, and I'd love to go up there and look at the Badlands and see where they get all the dinosaur digs and all that stuff. There's a lot I'm interested up there, so it's on my to-do list. So I definitely am going to be up there to visit you someday. I'm not sure exactly when, but I'm promised that I'm going to get an RV and I'm going to do a tour of the nation, Barb and I, and so I'll be up there for sure. And when I agree that this coming 2016 election is going to change politics, and it's going to spin it on its head. I'm telling you, it's Lord knows what's going to happen. It's just so different than any other political time I've ever seen. And I've been around here for pretty darn close to 60 years, and I have been alive since the Eisenhower administration. Oh, God, I hate to admit it, but I'm getting old. But
tell me you don't remember Washington.
Oh, yeah,
he's a
good friend.
Washington.
Yeah, he made some good booze. He'd be known as a moonshiner today, but...
Dan, you're just so good at this history. I've just always figured you were there.
I feel like it sometimes, trust me. But, Donald has brought so much greatness back into this country because it's brought politics back to the people. And that's something we haven't seen in such a long time. It's so refreshing, and this is why it's resonating on the left, too. I mean, how many times have we sat back and said, oh, God, I got to vote for him, oh, jeez. And we gag as we go to the voting booth, to vote for a person we really don't like. But we're doing it because for the party and for the principles that the Republican Party stands for. I don't like doing that. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of having to settle for a representative. And the GOP elite don't understand that. They don't understand that I'm sitting down here, and it's not that I didn't like Romney, but he was an establishment person, and he always will be. And same thing with Bush. He's establishment. All you're going to get is a repeat of what you did from Bush 2. We've already been there. We've been there and done that. He is still pro-big government. He still is an advocate of Common Core. And there's a lot of things I don't like about him, and I don't see him recovering. At this point in the game, it's 4th and 30 right now for him. And I don't see him being able to rally. I don't care how much money he has behind him, because people are sick of the establishment. And once the Republican establishment wakes up and finally starts smelling the coffee, we're going to continue, and we're just going to continue a downward spiral. So seeing a Trump in office as president, I wouldn't mind at all. And the next person to him is Cruz, but Cruz still is, has people supporting him economically. So he has some IOUs out there. this is why I'd like to see, to be honest, I'd love to see Trump Cruz ticket. And because Cruz would make a great vice president. And Trump is strong enough to be able to be the leader. And I would like to see Rubio as Secretary of State. Very few people are as strong as he is when it comes to foreign affairs. And even though he's an establishment type, in that position, he really couldn't do much damage. And he wouldn't have enough say in reducing the size of the government. I mean, right now, I just heard this on Fox News today. They have reports. There's government departments. One government department is studying whether or not pizza is as addicting as cocaine. We have another group that's checking out whether or not people like certain beds. And we're blowing literally millions of dollars on this stuff. And the author of this book went through just like 15 different stupid programs we have. One was watching a shrimp run down a treadmill. And we spent something like $3 million on that. And $3 million doesn't sound like a lot of money, but when you add it up, just the 15 examples he gave was over $100 billion. And they said we're cutting our government. Well, guess what? Instead of taking away from our military, why don't we take these stupid programs? I don't care what a shrimp does. I mean, if it's running down a treadmill, I don't care how fast it can run. I mean, it's and I don't care about pizza. You know, if you like pizza, eat it. I mean, I don't need to spend $10 million on something stupid like that. You know, if we started cutting these absolutely insane programs, we could afford everything else we need, which is why we need to cut back on the size of government. Trump is smart enough to see that. And he understands that, you know, if we're going to run this, we got to get rid of the crazy stuff. And he could chop down our government in in 2 terms down to a lean, mean fighting machine while not hurting anyone. And still keeping Medicaid and Medicare and Social Security running and all the social service programs that we need that for, you know, those who cannot work anymore or are too old. You know, we can keep all these programs just by getting rid of all this crap. And I hate to say it that way, but that's the fact. And Trump is the best person to do it because we know whatever he says is coming from his heart. And there's another thing I keep on looking at, is you can tell a lot about a man by the way his children are raised. And you want to find more respectful children. You'll never find more children more respectful than Donald Trump's, which means they've been raised as good Christians. They've been raised to respect other people. And that says a lot to me. Because, you know, we don't look at, oftentimes when we look at families, we're trying to break down and harm them. And I look at Donald Trump's kids, you know, and because he's been such a public figure, there's a lot you can say about a man by looking at their family. And same held true with Herman Cain. His family is wonderful. He raised them properly. He raised them in the church. And what Glenn said earlier, when you turn your back on God, what do you get? This mess. And Donald Trump is going to bring God back into this country. And when Donald said he was going to return Christmas, I stood up and applauded. Because I haven't been able to celebrate Christmas like I used to for years. And I'm looking forward to being able to go, into the center of town and seeing all the nativity scenes and all the Christmas lights and all the wonderful things we remember as children that represent Christmas. Goodwill to mankind, and everybody was getting along, and everybody said Merry Christmas, and it was a festive time of year. It was a wonderful time of year when we all really could just get into the spirit of things, the caroling, everything. God every year would really be the forefront, and it was wonderful. Then this political correctness messed it all up. We had one person said, I'm an atheist, therefore you guys can't show anything. Well, you know something? That didn't say it doesn't. The First Amendment doesn't say you have the right to dictate how I practice my belief. Yet the Supreme Court got bent out of shape, and the liberal Supreme Court messed everything up for us. And it's about time that we return things the way they should be. And it's about time that, something, that when a kid goes to school with an NRA T-shirt, great. If a kid goes to school with a Bible in his hand, well, God bless him. We shouldn't have principals, teachers, or whatever going out and telling us how bad we are, or that we can't have a Bible class after school, while we allow another group to lay down their rugs. This is discrimination against our belief. And I'm not telling the Muslims who to believe. Whatever. I mean, if you don't want to believe in God, I can't do anything in that to change that. I can show you the light, and if you decide to close your eyes, that's your decision. God gave us the right of free choice. And I can do what I can, but if you're not going to listen, it's nothing I can do about that. I can't force you to believe in God. And let them, I guess they're an established religion, but when I look at it, I go back and in history, and since the 1200s, in the time of the Crusades, there's been a warlike faction of the Muslim belief. And they invaded in 1200, they invaded Europe all the way to Paris. And Pope Urban II knew that the very existence of Christianity was in danger. And that's why he called upon all the nobles in Europe to gather their forces together to drive the Muslims back beyond the Holy Land, so that Christianity could survive. And then let's fast forward to the late 1700s, when we first became a country. We're trying to make a little money because we're broke. And then we have Muslims out of Tripoli hijacking our ships, taking our merchant ships, they were selling off our crews as slaves, and they were taking, if they couldn't use our ships, they sold it. And they kept on doing it. I mean, Thomas Jefferson tried to create a treaty with these people, and they were unsuccessful. So we were forced into the Barbary Wars, 1801 to 1805, and we got to the point where we had no choice but to send Marines over. And it is still, it is eulogized in the Marine hymn. So we've been fighting against these people since the very beginning of our country. And now they're back and doing the same darn thing. And until we can vet the bad from the ones who are nonviolent, then we have to take precautions for the very safety of our citizens. And with that, I'll pass it over to Gary or Glenn.
Well, I'll tell you, Glenn contacted me on Facebook, and he can't. He got disconnected, and he can't call back. He tried to call in, it wouldn't work. So he just contacted me, just a few minutes ago. So I thought I'd tell you that. So I guess you can turn it over to me. So yeah, you're exactly right. Like I said, history is actually repeating itself here, and we're going to have to. This is, it's going to escalate. This is going to get worse until we decide to do something about it. Something's going to have to be done. I mean, you're talking about Muslim, about these terrorists and stuff, ISIS and of course Hamas and other terrorist groups. And you're exactly right there, Dan. So, but anyway, I'm going to probably end up going to bed here pretty quick because I got to get up tomorrow morning. I'm getting pretty tired here. So, but yeah, I'll pass it. I don't know who else is on the line here, but I'll just pass it over to the next person. So,
okay,
well, yeah, we
over.
went around. I don't even know what it is. We went 2.5 hours tonight. Absolutely incredible. Fun to do sometimes. Good conversation. Always good to have you call in, Gary. Always appreciate when you're here. Great
Anytime.
discussion. And we've Jennifer's faded off. Glenn, if you get disconnected after we go into archive, you can't call back into the show. So people can't call in that last hour if we go into archive. So Glenn got disconnected and couldn't get back in. But great show, guys. We're going to put ourselves out with a little bit of Red Skelton to remind us about Saturday's symposium. Folks, join us here at, what time? 10:30. Texas time, 9:30. California time, 12:30. Florida time, I do believe. Right, Dan Wilson?
I thought it was 12.
All righty. What's that?
I thought it was noon straight up on it.
Oh, let's see. We've got Conover U starts at the half an hour, and it gets me confused now all the time. That's right. 9, 11, and 12. Don't listen to me. I don't know anything. I just set the schedule. Anyways, we'll talk to everybody next week. But first, we got Red Skelton. He's kicking here with me in the chair. So, Red, why don't you tell us about that teacher you had in Indiana? Take yourself off mute, Red.
I remember a teacher that I had. Now, I went through the 7th grade. I went to the 7th grade. I left home when I was 10 years old because I was hungry. This is true. I work in the summer and I go to school in the winter. But I had this one teacher. He was the principal of the Harrison School in Vincennes, Indiana. To me, this was the greatest teacher, a real sage of my time, anyhow. He had such wisdom. And we were all reciting the Pledge of Allegiance one day. And he walked over, this little old teacher, Mr. Laswell was his name. Mr. Laswell, he says, I've been listening to you boys and girls recite the Pledge of Allegiance all semester, and it seems as though it's becoming monotonous to you. If I may I recite it and try to explain to you the meaning of each word. I, me, an individual, a committee of one, pledge. Dedicate all of my worldly goods to give without self-pity. Allegiance, my love and my devotion to the flag, our standard, O glory, a symbol of freedom. Wherever she waves, there's respect, because your loyalty has given her a dignity that shouts freedom is everybody's job. United. That means that we have all come together. States, individual communities that have united into 48 great states. 48 individual communities with pride and dignity and purpose. All divided with imaginary boundaries, yet united to a common purpose. And that's love for country. And to the Republic, a state in which sovereign power is invested in representatives chosen by the people to govern. And government is the people. And it's from the people to the leaders, not from the leaders to the people, for which it stands. One nation, meaning so blessed by God, indivisible, incapable of being divided, with liberty, which is freedom, the right of power to live one's own life without threats, fear, or some sort of retaliation, and justice, the principle or qualities of dealing fairly with others, for all, which means, boys and girls, it's as much your country as it is mine. And now, boys and girls, let me hear you recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Since I was a small boy, 2 states have been added to our country, and 2 words have been added to the Pledge of Allegiance: under God. Wouldn't it be a pity if someone said that is a prayer and that would be eliminated from schools too?
He has an ROV, which he built. It'll get down there and take a look at